Hello and welcome to the Tipsy Beekeeper, where I do urban beekeeping, homemade winemaking, and homemade mead making. Today I'm going to show you how to build your own bee box, because this is the way to build your own bee box.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I'm building this box for my newest swarm that I caught, which is going to be known as the Mandalorian hive. If you follow along on my channel, you'll see most of my hives all have Star Wars themed. I've got the Empire hive, the Rebel hive, and now the Mandalorian hive. They're the Mandalorians because they're my foundlings.
Mandalorian isn't a race.
It's a creed.
It is a foundling.
I was a foundling.
By creed,
I was treated as one of their own.
it is in your care.
Or swarm. Had to find them. Okay, so normally on my channel, when I'm doing things, you see me, I drink wine or out Tipsy Beekeeper, I drink beer and my homemade wine. But today, since I'm doing assembly and I'm actually going to be using saws and power tools and stuff like that, my wife, she specifically said, she's like, look, you're going to be using power tools, you cannot drink any wine or any beer when you make this video. I told her, look honey, not a problem. I will not consume any wine or any beer when I make these videos, because you know it's all about safety, and I don't want to give anybody any bad impressions or anything. So no wine, using power tools, and you're making these kinds of things. Alright, so got that out of the way. Just gonna go over real quick the parts of the box that I got sent. I get this off of Amazon. I'm not gonna say who I buy it from yet, because I'm not totally gonna support them yet, because I've only been beekeeping with these boxes for like 6 months. I gotta see how they stand up over time, but I like them in the fact of they're pretty easy to assemble, and they're all wax dipped. So what that means when they're wax dipped is they actually dip them in wax. So they should last longer than just a normal board that you paint. A normal board that you paint, now you got to come back every season and you got to paint it, and you got to paint it. So that's just more work for you as a beekeeper. These, on the other hand, should last for years without you having to go and paint them. But by the time you do need to paint them, you can start painting them and get even more life out of them. That's the concept behind them. So you start off, this is called the bottom board. This is what your hive boxes sit on. Okay? And because this is beekeeping down here in Florida, it gets hot. And the bees need as much ventilation as you can. Because, I mean, they'll do fine if you put boxes on top of this and just stack it. But what will end up happening is during the really hot weather, a lot of the bees will leave the box and they'll come out of the box and just hang out on the outside of your boxes, so that it cools down the temperature inside the boxes, because they don't want to bake the queen or bake any of their babies. They need an exact temperature inside there. So I'm going to cut out of this a square in the center of it and put a wire mesh over it. It'll help with the ventilation for the bees, so they've got more bees working instead of trying to cool the hive off during the summer. That's more bees making me honey. So this is step one. I'll show you how I cut it. So this is the back side of my bottom board, and what I do is I put 2 pieces of 2x4 on the bottom of it like this, so it stands up off the ground to get that air ventilation through the bottom of it. So just make some rough marks. So I can make some cuts, 2 pieces to go on both sides. So now I have my legs cut. I can figure out the dimension that I want on the inside for my hole. It's not an exact of how you just want it as big as you can possibly make it and as manageable as you possibly can make it. There's no need to get crazy and come all the way exactly up to your wood over here. You can give yourself a half inch, whatever. The main goal is just have a squared off piece that's mesh to help the bees ventilate their own area. So now that I got my area drawn out, I take a paddle bit and I drill into each corner so that when I take my skill saw, it just makes it easier to cut all the way through it. So now I have my holes to make it easier for my skill saw to cut through it. Cut it with a skill saw. So now that we have our hole, just want to measure out our wire mesh. Again, give yourself plenty of leeway. So you have overlap so the bees can't get underneath it and go back through it. So there's your mesh with plenty of coverage, and now we just staple it down. There we go. Nice and stapled down, plenty of ventilation for the bees. So I feed my bees with an entrance feeder. What I want to do is cut their entrance reducer so that it fits just the same. Okay, now we have everything cut for our bottom board assembly. Now we just have to finish assembling it. We've got to put our 2x4s on it. So I'll show you how I drill those on. Again, you could just leave it as is, but this is how I modify my bottom boxes. This is what I find works for me down in Florida. Bottom board is almost totally complete, but we'll come back to that. The rest of it is fairly simple from here. I modify it because that's what I like for my bees. I like them to have this ventilation. So next step is assembling the deep box, which is pretty straightforward. From here, I'm pretty much going to put it on fast mode for you guys, so it goes for a little bit forward for you and saves you some time, but it's a very straightforward assembly. Next, we move on to the super that comes with it. The super is just another word for where the honey's stored. That's all it is. Honey super. Frames go inside. It's got the lip for the frames to sit on. Done. This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
So this is Sterling. He's my little bee catcher. He loves eating bees. How he has never gotten stung yet absolutely amazes me. He runs around here jumping up, grabs the bees, swishes them around in his mouth, then spits them back out. Yeah, he's amazing. But he's my doggy. He's Sterling. He's a good boy. You see him all running around in the back of my videos all the time. And most of the time, he's trying to eat bees. Weird guy. Alright, go on. Go eat some bees. So now I want to show you how the whole thing goes together. Got your bottom board where it's up off the ground, so you got plenty of ventilation, air to run back and forth. You've got your wire mesh, so air can come up and it's got plenty of ventilation. Next is your entrance reducer. This is going to kind of go right there. There's your deep and or brood box is going to go right on top of that. Call it a brood box is because this is where the queen stays and lays her eggs. The feeder will go right in here, so I can put my jars of sugar water on it, and that's their little reduced entrance, so they have an easy time of guarding it. All the frames will go inside. This is called the queen excluder. You put this on top next, which she can't crawl through this, but the worker bees can. So what it does is it keeps her down in this box so you don't get any of her eggs mixed into your honey. You put that on, and then from there you can stack as many of those honey super boxes on there as you want for the bees to fill it up. What comes next is called the top board, and basically it's got this little hole cut out and it gives a gap at the top so that air can circulate and air can come up through. So your top board goes on. And then this is your lid. It comes assembled. Again, wax dipped. There we go. Mandalorian beehive. This is the way to build a beehive box. I'm going to go ahead next and show you how to build the medium frame and the deep frame. I'm only going to show you each one because you just then assemble them all the rest of the same way. Okay, like I said, now I'm going to show you how I assemble my frames. This whole kit comes with both the deep frames and the medium frames, 10 apiece. All the tops and all the bottoms are the exact same size, the exact same piece. The only thing that makes the difference is the ends to show how deep it is. Okay, so for my deep frame, what I do, just regular old wood glue, don't matter what kind, You only need a dot of this on each place, and then I put a brad nail through it. But this, I definitely recommend doing the wood glue. Some people just nail them, but the last thing you want to do is be in your hive pulling out frames and they fall apart on you. It makes a complete mess. The bees go absolutely crazy. Takes a long time to get it all back together and cleaned up. Takes a little bit longer to put them all together, but it's way easier than having one fall apart of you in the frames. So a dot of glue on each side. End of the frame goes on. End of the frame goes on. This is a wax plastic foundation. Again, it's made out of plastic, but then they take and they dip this part in wax, which is supposed to help encourage the bees to come pull it out in this formation. It's a hit and miss. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't like it. It's really weird. The bees are fickle. They do what they like. But if you're going to use a honey spinner or a honey extractor, then you need to use foundation. Otherwise, when you put it in the spinner, the comb will fly off to the side of the wall and make a big gigantic mess. So okay, from there you can see I got a whole bunch of frames to put together, but you guys don't want to be bored watching me do that. I'm just going to repeat the process over again. I hope you learned a lot from this video. Hopefully my next video is going to be me showing you how I transfer the Mandalorian hive into this hive. So please follow along, subscribe, leave a comment, thumbs up, all that stuff that everybody says in their videos all the time. Again, from the Tipsy Beekeeper, until next time, bottoms up.